So this is Hakko Denshin Jiu-Jitsu, which is a traditional Japanese form of Jiu-Jitsu. It goes back to early century Japan. Jiu-Jitsu is a martial art that was passed on through the samurai clans through generations. So the focus is a lot on their tradition, the respect, the art of Jiu-Jitsu. Jiu-Jitsu translates to the art of gentleness. So it's a way in which we practice self-defense without causing permanent damage to attackers. I've been doing this jiu-jitsu for over 20 years now. I started when I was in high school. I took karate in high school with a gentleman that ran a karate club here in Goderich, and I left and I went away to college, and when I came back, his karate club, when I came to join, turned into a jiu-jitsu club. So I had joined, I was working with my instructor at the time, and so eventually he moved on, and students took over the dojo, and I became an instructor, and here we are now. So there was a lot of interest in, especially for the kids class, having kids classes. So when we first started, we just kind of advertised on Facebook and through word of mouth, and had a really full open house, and the kids class has been full ever since. The adult class has been word of mouth also. Just we don't even have a website or anything like that. It's just through Facebook and word of mouth. So every class that we do, we always start off with a traditional bow-in. So this is a traditional martial art, how we like to train. So it shows respect to each other, respect to the art, respect to the history. That's all of the showman in the front of the dojo. Is the picture is a picture of the founder of Hakko Jiu-Jitsu, which is where our style of Jiu-Jitsu originally came from. So we bow informally to show respect to the history, to the culture, to one another. We'll go through, we don't spend a lot of time on conditioning and warm-ups. It's not the style of martial art where you need to build up strength and agility for it to be effective. So we just kind of limber up. We practice a lot of break falls because we throw each other around a lot, so we learn how to fall safely so we don't hurt ourselves in class, and then we'll move on. We spend most of the class practicing that basic syllabus, and then at the end of every class we'll practice some self-defense techniques. So.
say 75% are in
Yeah.
town, and the other 25 are coming from outside.
Yeah, we have an instructor. We have one person that comes from Lucan to train. Kitchener.
Yeah.
So they're not as regular because of the travel, but yeah, so we get them from all over.
So kick this out.
So the signs on the wall, those are the syllabus. So there's 4 of them: Shodan, Nidan, Sandan, and Yandan. So Shodan is your first degree black belt technique. So our running joke is that you only need to learn 21 techniques to get your black belt. Because once you've learned that syllabus and you master it, then that's when you're ready for your Shodan. It's kind of our version of a traditional karate kata. You practice cooperatively with a partner. First from kneeling, so you practice just the hand movements.
Subadori, just gonna strike, defend here. Comes up, meets the hand, holds, and with the thumb. This will simulate breaking the thumb. Comes out around the wrist. Setting Ayadori, which is a wrist lock, and just body weight in with a tap. It's Matsubadori at a Nidan Waza.
Once you master the hand movements, you add footwork, you add hip rotation, body movement, and then once you really refine those principles that you learn in those 21 techniques, then you apply that to self-defense techniques. And then it doesn't matter what the attack is, you're able to just kind of apply that principle to any specific technique.
In Shodan, the syllabus, the first waza that we learn, they only have to learn a certain amount of techniques, and they focus on those, and then your break falls and your basic stuff, and then they test on those, and then they continue to build on it and just learn more and more techniques as they go. and they run through white, yellow, orange, 2 green, 3 brown belts, and then on to black belt.
The 21 techniques, there's only 21 of them, but they do take a long time to, the reason why we practice it that way is so you can refine the very specific motions, and it takes a long time. And then you have to be able to demonstrate in those 21 techniques, there's 7 different principles, the principles of escaping or striking or different wrist techniques. So then you also need to be able to demonstrate that understanding in self-defense situations. So you need to know more than 21 of those. You'll have to do a lot of self-defense techniques, yeah.
With regards to our first waza, your first degree black belt, you're generally focusing a lot on the bigger joints of the arm this way and locking the shoulder. You move on to Nidan, you start moving a lot smaller joints. Into Sandan, you start focusing a lot more on the pressure points on the top side of the arm, and Yondan on the underside of the arm, pressure points on the side here. Just think of just that natural meeting point. We do incorporate some strikes, knees and elbows and that, but mainly as a defense distraction tactic more than an offensive.
Try to make sure you keep it, bend your knees, don't let this move this way. As soon as I move my hip.
Well, what we really focus on is a no challenge, no resistance, no injury. That's basically our basis of what we train with.
It's focusing on learning. It's not competitive. It's not MMA. We're not here to challenge one another. So like when we practice the basic waza, it's just to cooperate and learn. So we really do try to just let our partner use our body to kind of really refine their techniques to make it better. I learn how to fall safely when he does it to me, and I practice how to protect myself. He learns how to do the technique better, and then we just go back and forth, and that's how you learn. We always say to the students, you can't learn to throw anybody until you learn how to break fall yourself, because until you can be thrown, you're not going to learn to throw anybody else. So you have to learn how to fall safely, and usually what that entails is, whenever possible, lowering yourself down to the ground. Instead of falling from up here, fall from a lower distance if you lose your balance, and then spreading out that energy when you land on the mat. So slapping the mat, that loud noise you hear is the slapping of the mat so that it's absorbed from your fingertips and your arms all the way down the side of your leg, rather than if you were to just land and kind of tuck up, then it might all be absorbed on a shoulder or just on your rib, and then that's when things get hurt. So. For me, I would say it's the tradition. I've always been a fan of like Japanese history and culture. I went to Japan earlier on in my training, and I really, really enjoyed it. I love all the aspects about that. So that's what draws me towards this style of jiu-jitsu as opposed to like Brazilian or MMA styles of jiu-jitsu where it's more competitive. Even like judo or taekwondo that tend to be more sport oriented. This is more traditional, historical based. So sometimes people look and they think, you know, you're kneeling down, you're practicing, nobody's gonna ever attack you like this. No one's gonna But the reality is in Japan, if you were a samurai warrior and you had your sword, you'd be deadly with your sword. So one of the first things that would ever happen is if you were attacked, people would come in and somebody would grab your hands or try to grab your wrist so you couldn't grab your sword, because with one pull of that sword, you'd be dead. So that's kind of where, it doesn't really apply to us modern day times as much, but it's deeply rooted in history. Well, normally what happens is, what you saw us do is, we would call it, in Japanese you call out an attack. So if I'm going to defend myself, I would call out and I would say in Japanese, Tachimai, Tataku, Osaidori is an example. So that in Japanese, that's he's going to stand in front of me and he's going to throw a hooking punch. And I'm telling him that I'm going to do this technique called Osaidori. So he knows I'm going to end up there somehow. Other than that, it's just him knowing how to protect himself, learning how to break fall. He'll do the attack, and then after that, he just kind of goes with wherever I make him go afterward.
The joint locks will manipulate the person to a certain extent where you want them to go. But after years of training, you have a very good understanding of where and how far you can take those locks to.
Yeah, there's only one way to go to escape the pain, and that's, depending on the technique, that's you learn quickly, and it's actually one of the reasons why we get people to train the way that we do at the very beginning, because sometimes the first time you experience it, you're not really sure what to do, other than it hurts. So sometimes people will freeze. So one of the safe ways that we do the training, it allows people to kind of feel it a couple times first without getting buried or hurt, and then they can kind of figure out where they need to go to escape the pain, and then once they've kind of figured that out, then you can start to build upon that. Yeah, well, it's exercise and all those other things that you can get through any other sport, but this is one place where not everybody gets a prize. Everybody grades at their own speed, and the only way that you progress is by focusing, paying attention. And what we find is that a lot of kids, sometimes when they come in, if they're not able to focus right away, when they see other students progress and they're not there yet, that's when they learn that they have to be dedicated, they need to focus on practicing and training. It's not going to be anything that's just given to them, and it gives them that focus that they need in class to train, so it's good.